Hey everybody, JJ here, back for another midweek special edition of Zoom Networking. So here we are, really excited today. I'm in a new location, a new background, but we have, again, quality guest speaker. We have none other today than my good friend, Rick Sheldon, out of the Sub 2 program, realtor, investor, business guy, guru, and all around great freaking guy. Hey, Rick, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, JJ, I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And before we get started, I just wanted to express my gratitude to you for, putting this entire platform together. To everybody in the group here, I do know a good chunk of you, but to those that don't know me yet, like the little name tag down here at the bottom would suggest, my name is Rick Sheldon. I ran into JJ a few months ago, and since joining this group, I've met some great friends, and I've actually been introduced to some private money lenders and other great people as well. So thank you so much, JJ.
Oh, brother, I appreciate you. The group is about helping other people, and for you out of Sub 2 and as visible as you are to walk on in here and say that the group is benefiting you from a networking standpoint. I hope other people that are on the call, if not watching this later, understand the importance of networking. Networking is so crucial to your business. This is not a business that we can do by ourselves. And it's important that we network, and network means being visible. We have a young lady on the call right now out of Nashville. And then the first thing I said to her was, I recognize her name. She's working on the treadmill there at Yatang. She's just working it out. But I know her name. And by being visible, people know who you are. And it's about being memorable. And that's what makes us up apart. But really quick, what are you going to tell us about today?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys how to actually sell a deal on a wraparound mortgage. And there's a lot that goes into that, a lot of details that we will not be, deep diving into, but we're just going to, make a segment here that you can refer back to whenever you have a deal that you're looking to sell on a wraparound mortgage. You can follow these simple steps, and I'm going to try to boil it down to really help you get these deals across the finish line.
I'll tell you, man, I'm really excited because before we spoke, I didn't have the foggiest idea what a wraparound mortgage was. So again, we're bringing great gold nuggets to the group, to the community, to the YouTube channel. And with that, brother, take it away, Rick.
Just to give you guys a little bit more insight about who I am. I'm from Michigan originally, living in South Carolina at the moment, but I'm sure that'll change by the time this episode airs because I tend to bounce around quite a bit. So I have a background in sales and marketing. After I graduated from Michigan State in 2016, I got into sales, started selling chromatographs. If anybody knows what that is, definitely let me know because not something that very many people know. I did that for about 4 years, had a little stint in marketing as well before really getting the real estate bug and digging into all of the bigger pockets, episodes, and the books and all those things. Started my real estate journey by buying a home up in Michigan. So that's a rental. And then, soon after that, I started getting into wholesaling. So I stumbled across PTP and all these other YouTube gurus, and I implemented my own system. And by November 2020, I went full-time into real estate. Some people might think that's a little bit premature, having just bought my first rental and not having done any wholesale deals at the moment, but I knew what I wanted, so just went for it. I joined Sub 2 soon after my systems were, fully implemented. I wanted to at least get my marketing rolling before investing in a mentorship. But I joined Sub 2 about a year ago to the day almost. And, it's been amazing ever since. So this talk will be focusing on how to sell a wraparound mortgage. And, there's a lot of details that lead up to that. But what I do want to point out is that within Sub 2, it's most important because when we buy a deal, a Sub 2 deal, the underlying mortgage stays in place. And this wraparound mortgage, as you'll see, is a good way to just wrap new terms around an existing mortgage and sell it to a new buyer. So you can do that in a couple different scenarios. Option A is you already own the house, or option B is you're buying a mortgage that's already in place and you're wrapping new terms around it. So with that being said, I will go on over to the next slide and tell you what we're going to discuss during the call. So like I mentioned, we're not really going to dive too deep into what a wraparound mortgage is and how they come about, but we're going to assume that you've got one that you're trying to sell and just focus on the steps to move it from point A to the finish line. So what's involved with that really is finding and qualifying your buyer, and then who can help you get that deal across the finish line. So what is a wrap and why would you sell your house on one? I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's really just a form of secondary financing where the seller holds a promissory note and is generally offered when an underlying loan is not going to be paid off during the transaction. So you might ask, why would you sell a house this way? So the benefits to the person selling a home this way are that you have three real profit centers. So first of all, you will be able to collect a down payment from the buyer. So that's money up front. Then you're able to charge an interest rate on the remaining balance. So you're getting money monthly. And then also you're able to charge a bit higher of a purchase price generally on these opportunities. So you're able to build in some equity that way. So just to give you a quick example of what this might look like, just because that might sound like a foreign language if you've never been exposed to this type of deal before. Let's just say that you've got a house that is worth $300,000, and there's a mortgage remaining on that house of $250,000. If you sell that house on the market, you might get $300,000 what it's worth. But if you sell it on this wraparound mortgage, we might be able to bump that up to somewhere around $320,000, $330,000. And what this means is whoever sells the deal is acting as a second bank, which is creating a new note with the buyer. And as such, that buyer brings in that down payment, generally around 10%. So in this example, if we've got a $300,000 house, we might be able to get a $30,000 down payment. And then they'll also pay more than you are responsible for paying on the underlying loan. So in this example, if we're able to collect, $1,700 a month, and our payment on the underlying loan is $1,000 a month, we built in a $700 monthly cash flow into the deal as well. And as I alluded to, the remaining balance is $250. We're putting a loan on top of that for $300. So if our buyer turns around and sells that house tomorrow, they are going to be responsible for paying off the underlying loan, or we will be. We'll pay off the underlying loan of $250,000 with our $300,000. So you'll have equity at the payoff as well. So those are the advantages of why we would even do this. So moving on to the next logical question is, who is this buyer? You probably heard the term homestead buyer that gets thrown around with these deals all the time. You got to find a homestead buyer. What is a homestead buyer? Well, most people are homestead buyers, actually. Like I would imagine almost all of us are homestead buyers. It's when you buy a house without the intent of, without it being an investment property. If you're just buying it to live in, to make it your homestead, you're a homestead buyer. So there's a lot of groups who fall into this category historically, like business owners who have unstable income, contractors who get paid on a W-9, but also even more broadly than that, there's this thing that happened called COVID, which happened to put quite a few people out of work. What that does is now when those people get a new job, they go try to qualify for a mortgage. The banks, the traditional lending banks, are going to ask for 2 years of income statements and those types of things. So COVID just caused a lot of people to now be, unbankable unless they buy houses from the owner directly like this. So this is actually a great method now in this type of environment, because we have a lot of people who are demanding loans that are offered in a non-traditional sense, as in not from banks. So, those are some of the considerations that I wanted to take care of before we jump into actually like taking this example that I walked through across and pretending that we're going to go and market for a buyer and go through these steps. So I want to take you through with an example, but before that, I just wanted to kind of clarify those points. What is a homestead buyer? Why would they buy this deal from us, and what will that deal look like? So now that we've got the home that we're looking to sell, what are we going to do? We're going to market to our buyers. So some of the most popular ways to market to buyers are local methods like signs and Facebook Marketplace targeting local groups. So signs are a huge one, for example. So think about it. We're looking for, buyers who want to live in a neighborhood. Who wants to live in a neighborhood more than people who are already living in it, walking by the house that you have for sale? So, sometimes these methods seem very obvious, but it's also very easy to overlook them. So signs are a huge way to drum up some interest in your houses. So if you get a chance, definitely throw some signs out. If you're marketing a wrap that you don't live near, I recommend calling agents or other investors to have them throw up a sign for you. On top of signs, we have Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and those types of web apps and websites. Those are absolutely incredible for this type of thing. Facebook Marketplace alone, I've sold a couple of these deals without even relying on any other method. But the downside of going with Facebook or Meta now is that you're at their mercy. They have a history of banning Facebook Marketplace accounts and those types of things. So that's why I want to throw these other ones in as well. You need to diversify your marketing for these buyers, because you don't want to have all of your eggs in the Facebook basket and develop that strategy, then get your Facebook account banned and have no way to market your deals. So while they are awesome, definitely, study these other methods as well. So next is MLS. I'm sure you guys have heard of the MLS. There happen to be quite a few buyers on there. And I just wanted to point out one thing about that. So with a lot of these methods, we're looking to, maybe avoid working with an agent because we don't want to pay that commission. But, I think that's pretty short-sighted and kind of missing the point. The MLS is where buyers go to look for houses, more so than any other single place. So you can throw a house up on the MLS for $200 with a flat fee broker and get a ton of exposure, host open houses that way. And, it's not that expensive. It's a great supplement to these other strategies. And then later on, there's something I want to mention, or one thing I want to mention that I'll touch more on later on, is that other investors can buy these deals as well. We don't only need to find a homestead buyer, we can also assign these same deals. So moving on to qualifying a buyer after we find one. So actually, before I jump into that, I just want to kind of summarize. These are all methods to market to buyers, but what's the goal here? We're trying to generate interest in buying our house. So what I do every time is I use these methods to drive traffic to an open house. I host an open house. Again, sometimes I'm not even in the market. I'll call agents in that market and tell them, I'll pay you $300, $200, whatever it is, if you host this open house for me, and collect, some contact info and provide it to me afterwards. So our goal here is to get these buyers to our open house. And then after our open house, we need to qualify the buyers who have shown up and who have expressed interest. So there are a couple approaches to qualifying these buyers, but what I really want to point out is that we need to utilize common sense qualification. And I'll give credit to Jory Alston for walking me through this, because when I first started qualifying wrap buyers, I I was trying to overcomplicate it by using forms and verifications and trying to get them to jump through a couple of hurdles. But if you approach it with a very common sense mindset, it makes a ton of sense. Like, what are we looking for? We're looking for a buyer who has verifiable and stable income. And what that means can change depending on who's asking the question. But for me, I look for a buyer who has a decent length of history demonstrating income of at least 3 times the total housing payment. And what I mean by that is the principal and interest that they'll pay to me, as well as the taxes and insurance that they'll also be responsible for taking care of. So on that note, while we're qualifying these buyers, we are getting a good idea about what they can afford. I don't market the price when I'm marketing these deals, or I try to do that as little as possible. What I really want to do is talk to the qualified buyers and get an idea about what they can afford, and then base my numbers on that. Because I've been surprised in the past that I've gotten much more of a monthly price than I'd ever expected, just by asking the buyers, what can you afford? And they told me a number that was much higher than I was expecting. So that turned my deal from a 20% return up to an 80% return or something like that. So really, it's all about getting buyers to the house, qualifying them through a quick phone call or a Zoom call, finding their references for employment, for their rental history, and actually verifying that. Investigate them, do some background checking, and then lastly, just go with your gut feeling. If somebody checks all the boxes, but they seem like a fraud, or you just get an uneasy feeling, I take that into account. I'm not sure if everybody does that or not, but for me, we're entering into a long-term relationship, 30 years in most cases. So you want to work with somebody that you can trust and that you think is going to take care of the property and all that. So just a quick aside on that note, the last property that I just sold on a wrap, I actually went with a gentleman who had no money for a down payment, because he was a carpenter. He was a specialty carpenter, and he was going to be able to do the rehab needed on the house. So he's moving in, he's taking care of it, he's improving the property. And for me, that was a good enough gut feeling to bypass kind of a down payment for him. So after we qualify him, after we suss out who we want to actually live in the house and buy the house from us, what do? We introduce them to what's called an RMLO. An RMLO is a residential mortgage loan originator. And this is an amazing person to know. I'd recommend knowing a few of these, because what they do is they help you avoid any complications with Dodd-Frank compliance. And they just take a ton of paperwork off your shoulders. So what you can do is you find the buyer that you liked, you do some initial screening, and once you have that good gut feeling, you introduce that person to an RMLO. It's going to cost you about $500 to make the introduction. And what the RMLO is going to do is they will go quite a bit deeper. They will collect financial information, credit history, rental history, those types of things. They will be the ones to go into more detail on that. And they will accept or deny the application. And it's in your best interest as the investor or the lender to accept their recommendation, because if somebody can't pass their qualifications process, then you should just go ahead and find another investor. After you introduce them to the RMLO, it'll take a couple of days for them to come back with a yes or a no. And if they're approved through the RMLO, then the RMLO will send all the documentation, they'll originate a mortgage and send it to the title company, who will then implement all the notes and the paperwork on all that end. So after that happens, 7 days later, you can close on the deal. So at closing, as an investor, you'll technically be in the position of a lender. I mentioned earlier, what we're doing technically is wrapping a new loan around the existing financing. So if you do this correctly, what this is going to mean for you is that you were able to collect a down payment up front. You're able to collect money monthly in the form of interest, and your purchase price to your buyer is higher than the loan that you have on the house. So if they ever pay it off early, then you're going to get a big payday in the form of equity. So that's basically how you move the deal from, getting it under contract or trying to sell a house that you've already got, looking for a buyer, finding a buyer, qualifying the buyer, and then introducing them to title and getting the deal closed. So that's the full process. And as I zoom out here, I just wanted to touch on, one more point that's just hugely important. So this process can be very simple. It's as simple as you make it, because there are a lot of people who can help you with this type of transaction. First of all, I don't do any of my own paperwork. I don't create the purchase contracts. I don't introduce them to title. I don't get escrow opened up. I don't even actually send the RMLO paperwork to title. I have a transaction coordinator and an RMLO who together will take care of all of the, the legalese of the transaction. So really, it's as simple as that. And I just wanted to solidify all this by going a little bit deeper on that deal that I've mentioned to you. So I had a deal in Michigan. It was brought to me by a wholesaler. I use Facebook Marketplace exclusively to drive traffic to an open house. Got a bunch of open house, attendance. And from that, was able to get about 4 or 5 qualified buyers, picked and chose who I liked the best, introduced that person to an RMLO. 2 or 3 days later, they were approved. The RMLO put the paperwork together and sent it to title. 7 days after that, we were able to close. And one final twist on that, just to kind of throw a little twist in here at the end, which, we can dig into deeper in the Q&A if you'd like. But like I said, you can assign this deal. I actually didn't ever own the deal. I assigned my interest to another party and they became the lender. So I got my assignment fee for putting the work in. And, I just wanted to highlight that that's possible as well. I think that's about it, JJ.
Cool, brother. Hey, Rick, man, that was awesome. Awesome, informative, gold nuggets, boom, 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 explosion all over the place, man. I'm sure everybody felt the same way. I know we got a couple of questions coming up for you here. But again, Rick, hey, I really want to thank you for being on today. Everybody on the call, please hang on. We're going to go into the breakout rooms briefly. We'll come into with the Q&A shortly after that. Brother, gold nuggets, man, just gold bombs out of the sky. Thank you so much. Everybody watching the call, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like this video for Rick that you're watching right now on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. Everybody else on the call, hang tight. We're going to go to the breakout rooms, do some networking, and everybody else, we'll see you next week. Over and out.